I think we'll do well to achieve all 7 topics within 2 minutes, or any of the 7 topics in the 2 minutes, with Dave Yates, Richard Hoyles and Shark Hanlon alongside me. We'll give it our best shot. First up, Lord Allen, and Dave, you've already touched on this subject. My big question about Lord Allen is the fact that he works 1 day a week, or that's his contract. Yeah. It's a massive task for someone, given what racing's in-tray is like.
It's amazing that, isn't it? That just for anyone who isn't familiar with the Lord Allen story, appointed in November, was due to begin the job of chair of the BHA at the start of June, but concerns over the governance structure of British racing meant that he held that off, and then he was confirmed, as I mentioned, on the eve of the Qatar Goodwood Festival. And this week he began the job. He said, my vision is simply that we work to preserve, not just to preserve, but to develop British racing into a modern commercial and cultural powerhouse, a sport that commands attention on the global stage, attracts new audiences, inspires fans at home, supports its people, and continues to set the gold standard for the care of the horse. Good luck with that. It's obviously it's a monumental project, but what we do know in contrast to the past is we've got someone who essentially has come in from outside and will be prepared to do things very differently.
I guess one positive is his connection with Labour, considering where we're at politically.
Yeah, I'm not very good on the political side of things, because I think, to be honest, if we're all completely honest with each other, you act on your own selfish interests, whatever your political alignment. Yeah. And I think I learnt from, again, salesman schemes when I was in the carpet industry, that what you had to do was ally making your salesman act perfectly selfishly for the good of the business. And I think that's where Lord Allen could have the most impact, is to try and work out where your objectives sort of align and concentrate on the easy wins. And once you begin to work together, then you're prepared just to give and take a little. But no one's prepared to be the first person to give and take. You know, the BGC with the levy deal that was meant to have been Judy Harrington's legacy, you know, that was kicked down the road for their own bane, and they're not alone in that. I'm not particularly blaming them, but we just have to try and find where everyone's alignment is selfish.
Just want to ask Shark, as an observer, what do you think Lord Allen's #1 target should be? What should be the top of his priority list?
Abolish the paperwork.
Get rid of the paperwork, anyway. If he's watching this, that's the first thing I want to say. Listen, he's an outsider coming in, and any outsider coming into the game, if he's good at it, it'll be a big help. But if he's not good at it, it can be a disaster. Yeah. So I don't know enough about it, right? But I just think that if he's good and he's willing to meet the right people, he can be very good.
The last word on it.
Has he got any mates in Reform UK? The way things are going, he won't need to in the Labour Party. Just saying.
Okay.
Singing at a party political conference. Anyway.
It was my cure for insomnia, that is.
That was something else. Yeah. Right, the next subject is illegal bookmakers. There was a report earlier this week that estimated 9% betting done illegally. I don't know about the veracity of those claims. I've only read the headline, I read the story. What are we to make of it?
Yeah, look, let's not dwell too much on the numbers, because whoever commissions any report, as you know, to some extent produce the numbers that they desire. Is illegal bookmaking an issue? Yes, it is. Is it on the rise? Yes, it is. And for 2 fundamental reasons. One, as you say, is the potential tax rates and margins, the ability to get a bet on, and obviously the other wider thing is just the demise of racing and the product that's being offered. My only concern is that when the BGC again are talking about the way money flows out of the industry, and with legal bookmakers we're talking about those that don't contribute to the levy, rather than it being, you know, selling things out the back of your car, or bookies runners on corners. But for me the main concern is that you need to ascertain that it's affordability checks and the restriction of accounts. Both of those monies end in the same place. Whenever you talk about restriction of accounts, bookmakers clam up, but at the same time, I know it's a small percentage of accounts, but it's a significant turnover aspect. So it's a growing problem. And obviously, if government is going to be motivated by a lack of tax take, they're going to need money. We'll talk about that later. Then anything that restricts that is going to be an issue.
That is not in dispute. The fact that it is a growing problem, we know that this is happening. We obviously, anecdotally, we know many people who've also moved to illegal bookmakers because of affordability checks, etc. But how significant is it, do you think, Dave?
Well, it's massively significant. It's something I was just going to ask all of us, really. Anecdotally, 20 years ago, or if you'd said to me, do you know anyone who bets on the black market? I said, no. I really don't. But whereas now, in the press room, there will be someone, no need to name names, but yeah, there'll be people there betting on the black market, which...
Yeah, I'd be more or less the same, if you know what I mean. I was very aware of black markets 20 years ago. And I suppose that the issue, I would say, Dave, in that time is that, you know, now it's a click of a button on a computer. You didn't need to know anyone.
No, that's true.
In those days, you did need to know someone who could get you on. You know, what's your experience?
Yeah, listen, I don't think there's an awful lot of... Well, in Ireland, anyway, there's not much of that going on. But
can you get one in Ireland? You know, you want to biggest problem. How do you go about it in Ireland?
The biggest problem in Ireland or in England or anywhere at the moment is that you go into Paddy Powers or Ladbrokes or wherever you want to, and you want to have £200 each way on a horse at 10 to 1, they turn around and tell you, we'll lay you £20 each way and at the rest of the SP. Like, this, you can't get money on. Like, 20 years ago, you had Joe Donnelly, you went up to him, no matter what you had in your pocket, he'd take it. But the bookies at the moment, they're not bookies. 95% of them are better off, to be better off at home sweeping the street or something. Because you go up, yesterday, for instance, I went up at £100 and he wouldn't lay me on a horse of 4 to 1. Right?
And so that was on course, yeah.
On course.
Yeah.
So, like, I think betting, and like you see there every day you go, well, there's a punt, something gone from 20 to 1 to 4s, right? The horse has no chance, and next thing, he returns at 33 to 1. But the people that are in there backing that horse, oh, there's a gamble comes down there and we're backing it. So, like me and bookies, I have much time for them, to be straight with you, because you can't get on at the moment. Like, if you want to get, we'll say, £1,000 on a horse tomorrow morning, I don't know where you go get on. Which, 20 years ago, it's no problem.
See, 20 years ago, you had bookmakers who were prepared to lay their opinion, and that's, for me, the fundamental difference.
Exactly.
I think I've said plenty of times, you know, bookmaking used to be an art, and now it's an algorithm. Yeah. It's effectively driven by computers.
Bookmakers would go to the racecourse with an idea of how they wanted to take a race on.
Yes.
And now they don't. No, not with as much frequency.
Your relationship with your bookmaker was one of the most prized ones for me.
Yeah.
You know, I would never have left a racecourse when I was punting, you know, without settling with absolutely everyone, because they call bets to your name. Yeah. It was the most honourable relationship. You know, different views, whereas now it is rather faceless. Not always. There are still some books on course.
Some bookies on course are very good, but
still there are exceptions to what is now.
Out of every 100, out of 100%, I'd say there's 10%.
Yeah. This week we've had news eventually emerging, and we all remember the images of Dylan Kitts on Hilson not making much of an effort visually in the closing stages of that race at Worcester. Charges through this week, Dave.
Yeah, the Wacky Weekender Festival Pitchcroft, 21st to 23rd of July, Conditional Jockeys Handicap Hurdle, was the name of the race. I love writing that in the Daily Mail. It was... I think it was July the 5th, 2023. Obviously, Hilson was a strong finishing third. It was a race run, I think, at about... Was it about sort of like 5 o'clock, something like that? Yeah. Social media went into absolute uproar, didn't it?
Understandably, on this occasion.
100% understandably.
And 2 years on, more than 2 years on from tomorrow, Chris Honor, the trainer, as you say, Dylan Kitts, the jockey, and also John Higgins, who, as far as we know, has no official connection with Hilson, that they will face charges of preventing this horse from being run on its merits.
I suppose one of the questions is the delay in getting to this point.
It's the main question, to be honest. I mean, look, we all accept that people have different views of running and riding offences, etc. But in this case, there was a clear case to answer, and the fact it's taken 2 years. I appreciate there's legal niceties to follow. gaining of the evidence. But I think if you are going to be serious about clamping down on what was one of the most obvious cases to be investigated, let's hear the reasons, then it's just got to happen faster.
I mean, in mitigation, the investigators would say that on the face of things, they didn't get an awful lot of cooperation from a lot of the people that they were investigating. But the flip side is to say this is a very serious matter. The wheels of justice, yes, they've turned slowly, but that's simply because we have looked under every single stone so that we can reach a satisfactory conclusion.
Without wishing to rake over potential coals, have you ever... How would that work in Ireland?
It would happen quicker anyway.
Yeah, I was going to just ask you. I mean, if you had, you know, if you...
To be all over within 10 days. It'll be put up to HRI and dealt with. Which the way it should be.
Yeah. I mean, like...
This thing is going on for 2 years.
I played devil's advocate.
Yes.
I don't actually think that over 2 years is a satisfactory
I do feel that
length of time.
That there ought to be a precedent set that the lack of cooperation can be used against you in the prosecution. That if you fail to cooperate, then it will be viewed in a negative term.
I mean, I think some were warned off, weren't they, in terms of those that were to cooperate in the interim, weren't they?
In order to expedite things.
Yeah. But the actual formal charges, but...
Just going to move it on to what is turning into a fascinating tete-a-tete between John Gosden and Aidan O'Brien. Now, John Gosden has said he's not running ombudsman in the Irish Champion Stakes. One of the reasons he has given is that he didn't want to run against an operation that might have multiple entries in a short home straight at Leopardstown. Aidan O'Brien has also, in a racing TV interview, suggested playfully, that John Gosden sometimes whinges. From the outsider's point of view, I enjoy watching this unfold. Shark, you're smiling away.
Listen, I don't think Aidan meant any harm by it, only having a bit of fun and trying to wind John up. And I think that's what was happening. Like, Aidan didn't mean any harm in what he said. And he probably, by what he said, was trying to get John to bring on the horse. Do you know? Do you think there's anything... I mean, you deal with them. Do you think there is any underlying tension there at all?
Oh, I'm sure there is. Yeah. I mean, this goes back a very long way, doesn't it? I mean, talking to John Gosden years ago when he'd send horses to Ireland and say, as long as it's a clean race. And you think, OK, I know what you mean by that. There was... it was Huntinghorn, wasn't it, who always used to keep Enable company during races. I used to joke, like, Huntinghorn should cover Enable because he spent more time with it than anyone else has. I'm sure there is, and I think that from a media point of view, and certainly a red top point of view, like, we follow football, we follow cricket. I mean, like, Arsene Wenger and Ferguson, Arsene Wenger and Mourinho. Look at what's gone.
We love it. Absolutely.
Expletives at the crease. It's just been great. So we're so polite in this sport, aren't we? And everything is nuanced and understated and irony rules. Well, when we do have a bit of tension between practitioners, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's really... It started at the beginning of the week, and Aidan was imploring connections of ombudsman.
Do you think he knew at that point that it wasn't ombudsman?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah. I think probably glimpsed in his eye, yeah.
I mean, Aidan said, I think it's 1-1 between Delacroix and...
Yeah, that's right.
He knows. He would know it's 1-1. I would like to see this continue. I would like to see it continue because it's entertaining. And we don't often get enough of that. I mean, obviously, Shark, you're one of the most popular characters in the sport because you wear your heart. Well, you wear your heart on your sleeve, And the revelation of what is often buried inside that we all prevent is partly why racing doesn't always sell itself that well. Everything is polite, as Dave says, and I think more character.
Well, listen.
Sorry, Charles, but that is exactly right. You know, like we talk about racing's cut through and stuff like everything is so bloody polite, and no one says...
I apologise for Dave.
No, that's not a swear. That's not a swear word. Simon Jordan says it on TalkSport all the time, and they never apologise. And if I never come back on just like that, born in mind. And of course, there's no, like, we sort of, cut through to think, well, like, when there's a, like, that Wenger, the stuff with Wenger and Ferguson, Pizzagate and with Mourinho, that caught an awful lot of interest, didn't it?
You can say the national journalist here just desperately looking for
I've been terrible at managing you time-wise, so we've got to kick on here. We're sort of Hewitt coming down to the third last in the King George. Right, a dream to share.
We got there, though. We get there.
A dream to share. Shark, I'll start with you on a dream to share, who obviously hasn't qualified for a mark for the Cesarewitch. Appeals have been heard. What's your view on that?
My view, well, I know from talking to people that the horse can't jump, so they have to go back to the flat one. And he's after running, and many times he's ran on the flat now, but he's probably entitled to a mark anyway. I don't know why he didn't get a mark in Ireland, and I suppose it's very hard for an English handicapper to give him the mark when he hasn't got a mark in Ireland. So, like, let it be right or wrong, I think he should have got a mark. I remember having a horse a couple of years ago, bit the same. He won his maiden and they wouldn't give him a mark. And I had to go back and run him in a winners or something. So, like, I just think that every horse, let it be a right mark or a wrong mark. You can ring the handicapper and give out to him and tell him that horse is £10 too high or whatever. He should have got a mark.
Dave, you have a strong opinion on this?
I do. I mean, I think it's really interesting. Obviously, it was weird that they appealed to Britain before they appealed to Ireland, because Britain couldn't really do anything. Like, you know, even in the British racing's appellate procedure, which, like, all too often seems to substitute one opinion for another rather than looking for procedural improprieties or unreasonableness, which is what happens in wider law. They couldn't do anything because there was no procedural impropriety. They just had to say, we can't really... It's our policy to reciprocate the Irish ruling, and there's nothing that can really persuade us to do that. Yeah. But I do find it interesting from the point of view of someone who spends much of his life looking at form for the following day, and say a 12-runner nursery, and I know this is Britain, not Ireland, but it does happen in Ireland too, that there's not enough evidence to give a horse a mark when he's won a maiden over 1 mile and 7. But you look at these 12-runner nurseries, three runs per horse, and you think, I've no idea which one of these is the best handicapped horse or the thinking behind getting their marks.
OK, we're going to move it on to growth potential. Now, this is Project Beacon, which is offering, Richard, the possibilities of a land flowing with milk and honey? Question mark?
Yes, I refer the honourable gentleman to the answer I gave a few moments ago about the sense that often these surveys, in inverted commas, you know, depend on how they're structured, depend on who they're financed by, can give you the answers that you desire. One thing I would genuinely say, however, is that it's easy for us all to be rather cynical, particularly when we're not seeing the whole workings of this and saying, well, you and I could have said that in the pub with Shark, with Hewitt, right on the back of a, beer mat. But for those people, some of whom are very experienced in the sport, high up in the BHA, they are highly enthused by this. Now, I don't know enough about it to know whether that is right or wrong, but they genuinely feel that this is a far more in-depth, detailed analysis, and as a result, that's what's leading to some of the claims. Now, I don't know whether it will translate or not. All I will say is that there is, within the corridors of power, the feeling that this is the best they've seen so far. I have no idea whether that's correct or not.
I'm just going to read from the Racing Post report on this. Project Beacon is the most extensive customer insight survey ever conducted by British Racing, as its leaders seek to understand how many people currently engage with the sport, the size of the group which could be won over, and the barriers which are preventing that growth. 25.2 million adults in Britain and Ireland are available to racing's cause. They split them into 8 customer groups, 3 already engage, and there are 5 different groups out there that don't. But sort of taking, obviously, there is a quite justifiable cynicism with surveys, and because we know from our lives elsewhere why people pay for surveys and why they publish the results. It's because they want the information that they can publish. It's not from me. I'm not saying this. Look, it's this independent bloke that we've just paid £500,000 to conduct a survey. But for all that cynicism, do us and the people watching this programme not believe that, well, horse racing should have huge growth potential because it's a very interesting sport. Yeah. It captivates us, all those people watching, and therefore, yes, of course, there's cynicism because we know who pays for the surveys, etc., etc. But at the very core of that, do we not believe that there is truth in it?
The key with all these is whether it leads to any action, because I think that's what most people think.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
We've been subject to so many surveys over the years that,
telling you what you think you already know,
we're
and
still
nothing
in the same situation, yet we have all these surveys. Do they make any difference? Last topic on Talking Points is David Armstrong, whose tenure as Chief Executive of the RCA is coming to a close. 7 years, is it, that he has served?
I think it's
in that
6.
position?
I think it's 6. Obviously, that includes the COVID-19 pandemic as well, and I think that even the Rafe Beckett's of this world would acknowledge, I hope, that racecourses did an awful lot of good in. I'll probably get a nasty text having mentioned racing, but even racecourses' most ardent detractors, I think, would probably be of the opinion that the racecourses did an awful lot of good work in that time, so that horse racing could come back before other sports. David Armstrong's critics will point to the power of the racecourses, but it was his job to represent the racecourses. You don't criticise the late Bob Crow or Mick Lynch. That's what they're there for.
Again, go back to what I said earlier, you act in the selfish interest of your client or who you're representing, and that is exactly what David will have done. The one thing that is definitely interesting going forward is the timing of this announcement. As always, it's masked in quotes, etc., about fine service, because the RCA, I think in particular, are viewed as one of those bodies which are very much potentially under threat with what may or may not have been agreed through Lord Allen, and whether they'll be able to act as a cohesive unit going forward is more open to doubt, I think, than it's been in the past. Is that fair?
I think that's entirely fair, and also the idea that with Lord Allen this is a new dawn, and therefore
you won't have the same people having seats at the table, basically.
Whatever the future of the RCA, that there is a fresh person, not necessarily a fresh person, we're probably very familiar with this person already, but that there is, it's not only a fresh start with the guy at the top coming in and dealing with the same old bickering parties, but there is there are new faces around the table.
Gentlemen, thank you. You've all done very well. I think
it like Mr. Grace there, do you remember that?
Yeah.
You guys
hasn't been too bad, I believe. That's been this week's Talking Points.